What you just saw was me doing the bench press. A simple set, 130 kilograms, one repetition. Notice that I do a set of motions, get in place and lift up the weight quite easily. I don't have any need for a spotter at this weight, and I don't use spotters anymore because I don't have any plans at my age to push forward the weights forward. I did it when I was younger, and now I'm just trying to have an exercise routine that lets me stay in shape. And I chose the video because that's also the topic of today's video. I want to speak about what you need to do to stay in shape as an author, especially in today's age, in the age of AI. Just like today, I don't need to get my chest stronger so that I can hunt mammoths. I need to do that because I need to keep myself healthy, and I need to stay healthy for a very, very long time until old age. Very recently, we have developed new technologies such as ChatGPT and Gemini and others that allow you to do away with most of the process of writing. My fear is that a lot of us would use these tools instead of regularly exercising our abilities as thinkers, as writers. And I still didn't come up with a full recipe for how to stop this deterioration and give a full exercise scheme. I'm working on that. I'm working on that every semester when I teach, with increasing intensity as technology develops. But I want to share with you some of my insights that I think are already relevant and useful today. My name is Shai Dotan. I'm Associate Professor of International and Public Law at the University of Copenhagen Faculty of Law, and the purpose of this series of lectures is to help you improve your English. Before we get to the exercise scheme, I want to describe the nature of being an academic or an author, the way I grew up to view it, the way it has been around for many, many hundreds of years, at least since the beginning of universities in the 13th century, and to some extent since the Greeks started to think about philosophy. In order to do that, I want to take a scene from a book that I like very much, a short book that is called Stoner, S-T-O-N-E-R, by John Williams. And the book describes a story that is almost autobiographical of somebody that, just like John Williams himself, grew up in a farm where there was nothing to do. The parents would sit with a child after working very, very hard physically all day and just watch the paint peel off the wall. He goes to the university to study agronomy and takes one elected class in literature and gets hooked, leaves everything, and eventually becomes a professor of literature. There are many interesting lessons from this book. I may get to it later in other videos, but I want to focus on one particular scene in which there are three good friends that are sitting down in a very small faculty. One of them is a very practical man that later becomes the dean. One of them is a very imaginative person that I think died in the war, if I remember correctly, or somewhere else, but he died during the book. And the Stoner himself, who is also a professor, or at least later on becomes a professor, are sitting down, and this imaginative friend, who is always very observant and has these almost prophetic discussions, he says there are very different ways to think about academia. So the practical guy thinks about academia in a way as knowledge starts from the professors. Even if a professor of literature, they will write a book. This book will be read by other professors who will teach it to the students, and these students will become teachers at high schools, who will train the next generation of engineers and doctors and firefighters and policemen and soldiers. And that's how the knowledge trickles down to the society. And even what we're doing is dealing with very occult ancient texts. We are serving society and making it better. Stoner was supposed to present the view that is closest, I think, to my own view as a child and a teenager. That is, it's a kind of a service of God, the academia. So it's a beautiful occupation that you are creating something that didn't exist before, and this is something that makes the world better just by this very fact. For me, this is a very Jewish view. We have a saying in Hebrew, tikkun olam, to make the world better. And when I was growing up, I always thought that I will be like my childhood heroes. My superheroes were Plato and Kant and Descartes and Nietzsche. And this was really the people that fought very, very hard and changed the way we think about the world. And I admired them, and I wanted to be one of them. It was much less important for me which discipline, as long as I kind of get to be in this exclusive club, because a lot of my heroes were like Pasteur or Gauss or people that were in different fields, but I wanted to do this service of God by knowledge. And the friend himself who was making the discussion, the observation, he said, I have a different view. For me, academia is like a zoo, if you would like, an asylum, with people with all kinds of very, very weird views that need very, very weird treatments. And we tend our zoo. We take care of these people. Out of 1,000 people, there's one person who cannot live without analyzing Shakespeare's plays. There are some who read them, but they get a lot over it, and some who just cannot live without it. So we need to make these reservations, that keep these people safe, and we need to produce literary books for them and so on. We need to take care of that. And I thought this is a very, very observant view. And to tell the truth, during my work as an academic, I moved between those three positions almost on a daily basis. Sometimes I was thinking, wow, this student that is in front of me would make an excellent lawyer, and I need to help him or her to make more money and provide for the family, or change things for the better for society. I need to give him the tools or her the tools. And sometimes I would really think, this is a book that very few people will read, but I just can't stop reading it. This is almost divine inspiration. It's imposed itself on me, and I spent months and years doing things just because of that, just because I couldn't stop this kind of demonic inspiration from chasing me and asking me to solve this problem. And there are also many times in which I saw people that were like me, that had this passion in their eyes, at all stages, by the way. Sometimes they were much older, sometimes they were the same age, sometimes they were the younger and I was the mentor. But these people became part of my, mostly became my friends, because most of my friends actually came from these circles, and some became very close colleagues that are, part of this collaborative enterprise that is academia. And all this time, I realized that in any part of the humanities and the social sciences, the most important tool that I could offer and that I could perfect for myself was clearly writing in English. Because this was something that you just couldn't do without. If you want to develop great ideas, especially the way I think, which I focus on writing books, you have to write these two pages a day that are very, very well crafted, and everything is linked together, and all the book comes out of it. So you have to write for hundreds of days with extreme discipline and keep a very high quality for this nugget, this diamond of an idea to eventually emerge. And I could really, really think about me giving this skill of writing to my students, and I did it in all my classes. I taught many, many classes Copenhagen Hebrew University in Israel. And I could always say, I try to teach my students how to write well, because writing, as I always say, is thinking. If you write well, you can think well, you can analyze problems deeply. And I try to give them this tool. And I really believed that I give them something that is very valuable. Because, especially when you look at the legal field, I mean, I have had people come up to me years later and mention a document that I've written. Sometimes it was even a document that was signed by my commander. My name appears only in the initials somewhere, but we figured it out. And I've met people, judges, that would say, this lawyer, I read a document that he wrote 20 years ago. I still remember how good it was. It was 2 pages, it was written 20 years ago. So it just like, this was the superpower. It's a better superpower than flying, because people just remember it years and years and years later. And in academic fields, that's obviously the case, because when I get an application, the first thing that you notice is the level of writing. And that's also was the connecting line between these kindred spirits that are all part of this zoo of intellectuals. And then something changed, which is that today you are able to write very, very well without writing anything, just by using artificial intelligence. Now, you can debate the small shortcomings that ChatGPT or Gemini have. The situation as we stand is that there are applications that offer you to write a whole book, an original book, in about 2 minutes of just trying to play around with ideas. So that's possible to do. I have played myself with these instruments. I see that they are great at finding ideas. You can ask them to find the idea, choose 1 out of 5, ask them to write a title for you, ask them to write an abstract for you, ask them to write an introduction for you, and then just in this manner write the rest of the chapters of the book. The only struggle that I still have to produce, I don't do that for my professional work, but if I had to produce a paper in an hour, I would be able to do that, are technical. Getting the footnotes to work with cross-references and proper footnoting and so on, and avoid the hallucinations that are also weeded out very, very quickly in most systems now. So we are at a new stage already today, and probably within a matter of, I don't have enough skill today to tell you if the computer can completely autonomously produce a book that is better than the very best professors in my field today, but I'm almost confident that it can do it a year from now, easily. And of course, once it can do it on a very large scale. So what this means is that the free metrics of academia are disintegrating. So it's no longer you produce something that nobody else can and help God and humanity just by doing that because the computer can do that. It's no longer a method for helping your students to excel in everything in life because the computer will do everything for them. We don't need this skill, and it's not anymore something, a distinguishing quality that once you go for this very arduous form of training and work, you do something that is unique to a very, very small group of people that will always cherish you for that, as kind of a priest in the temple of the spirit. So all these things are about to disappear. How long it will take, I don't know, because the metric that matters is not the technology, because technology is practically there yet already. The metric is just how institutions evolve and how these things will change. I don't know that, and I'm trying to check where it's going, but that's really not where I'm aiming. You remember how we started the video? I don't need to have a chest that is able to easily push 130 kilograms. I don't need that. For anything that I do in life, it's completely a redundant skill. And yet I do it. I do it because this keeps my body healthy. And on this, we actually have a lot of research and millions of people that can give a great basis for the claim that this is what keeps my body young. So when I'm 80 or 90, and I will need every gram of muscle that I can use to keep my well-being and my welfare, then all these hundreds and hundreds of kilograms that I lift at the gym would become relevant. And that's the main reason why I do that. Then, what should we do to exercise our minds so that our ability to communicate our ideas doesn't deteriorate very, very quickly? So just like, let's say I'm 43 today, I want to be able to walk around independently when I'm 80 or even 90. I also want to be able to think deeply about problems. I hope to still be active as an academic, but even if it's not problems, then having a high-level discussion with my grandchildren, or understanding the news and voting and taking them part in decision making, and all these things that require an ability to think and articulate ideas. Now, we have just begun to deal with this issue, how we can train people, not as a form of doing something that they're going to do anyway every day, but as a form of exercise. Just like in the Stone Age, men were not going around pushing rocks probably for sport or for exercise, because they did it anyway every day. They run tens of kilometers every day, they moved heavy things, they killed mammoths, they fought against lions. They did it all the time, just like an animal does. In the same way, when I teach writing, when I taught writing until 3 years ago, I was working under the impression that every single student in my class would write 20 emails a day, every day in their work for the next 40 years and hopefully later. So I knew that, and I knew that they would get extra practice. I designed all my techniques that I write in my book, that I always put at the end of these videos, to do that, to keep them, to get them to a certain level, so that then afterwards naturally they will prosper doing what they normally do as lawyers. And now already, even if you don't use ChatGPT to write, you can use Grammarly to improve your writing significantly, and there's a risk for a lot of these abilities to deteriorate. So the question is, how do you try to solve this problem? Already today, we have a lot of techniques that help you to study. Okay, so just like I study with Duolingo already many languages I've been for. I also use other methods, but I use it with Danish, with French, with German, with Italian mostly in the last year. So it's an excellent tool, and I don't see any reason why there will not be tools like this in English. And probably there are some, but I just we're not aware of. But you can study words like this. There are word games of various kinds that, take the classical crossword puzzle. It's also a good exercise. I don't like it that much, but I know there are people who use it. My father was always very, very trying to encourage me to try crossword puzzles, but I never enjoyed them so much. So I'm sure that there are many, many techniques that will help you to do that. Before you run around, go on Google or ask ChatGPT, give me all the tools that can help me improve my writing and my English and keep my mind sharp. And I'm sure that it's a good idea to do that, and you can probably learn a lot from it. Let me offer you an advice that you can take from the word of powerlifting, because that's a word that I understand. When I look at my training, almost everything that I do is bench press, as you saw, squat and deadlift, and running. I do a little bit of other things, a little bit of biceps and a little bit, sometimes exercises for the shoulders and things like this, but these are really the core things. And I go to a gym that has quite a lot of machines, very, very expensive and sophisticated machines. And I've seen videos of other gyms that are 10 times bigger, that have hundreds of machines. hundreds of exercises. And and some of them are great, they are great because, you working with a body that has an injury and you need to handle it in a proper way, or you want to focus on a particular muscle and make it very, very strong for any reason whatsoever. And all these things are great. But I can tell you that it's much better to stick to the basics, because when you're doing the squat, for example, and I like to do squats with about 120 kilograms, which is not a very high weight. I could do much more, but it's also not a very low weight. And I would do sets of about 10. This is for me an experience of my body has to feel the movement and control it. I have to be in control. I mean, one of the great bodybuilders that speaks about it very articulately is Tom Platz. He always explained about this the squat and how important it is. I see that you have to control your body, so it's working on numerous muscles, a very long movement, and also on your stamina, and also on your psychological well-being, and all this comes together to create a movement. The same, when I do the deadlift, it works on every muscle of the body. It's amazing, I do the deadlift. I swear to you, I sometimes feel I get muscles in my hair, on my head. I get muscles in my eyes. It just, everything is exercise. Oh, the effort is very, very comprehensive. And also the bench press for me is actually nice because it's never been a real challenge. I always was very, very comfortable with movement, but it also works on many, many parts of my body, obviously, especially the chest and arms, but everything else is connected. And then I also am able to do the one repetition, so it's maximum weight, or not exactly maximum, but close to maximum weight, one repetition, and then get all my body involved. I think that's much better than to do 50 different exercises that are complicated, unnatural, take you out of control, force your range of movement to do something particular. And for me, that's exactly the difference between, playing a word game that could be even electronic or even a crossword puzzle, and the core exercises that I advocate, which are writing, reading, and speaking. These are my bench press and my squat and my deadlift. The writing, the speaking, and the reading. Because every time when you engage in these activities, you use the text as a method of thinking in a way that is useful, recurs in many human activities, is natural, keeps you in control, and that's something that you really cannot do without. And I think that that's part of the reason why there are so many people that still read books that are physical books. It's completely inefficient. You can just buy an iPad and or a Kindle and read all the books there. And that's also recommended, and you can also do that. But of course, when you get to the point where you are seeing the words, moving on a page, remembering it as kind of a picture, getting the basic idea, having your own thoughts in the meantime, all everything comes together, and doing all of that very, very fast and for long periods, that's a great exercise. And when you're writing and you are really trying to put your ideas on a page in a consistent and coherent way, that's the best exercise for those who want to become better thinkers. That's really the core of the core of the core. You may ask me, should I have Grammarly on when I write? I guess it depends on the level. I mean, if your level is very low, I would probably recommend that you keep it closed and then open it when you're done writing, so that the writing itself is a bit more autonomous. If you are already an experienced writer and you know how to write, then you can get in prompts as you go along and see, and also disagree with a lot of them. So this is something that you can live with. But don't make it completely detached from your mental thinking. Don't let ChatGPT write for you. even though it does a very good job. So even though you can write this abstract based on your introduction with ChatGPT and it will be very good, I can tell you it does a better job than I can many times. You just give it the introduction of a paper, it writes a better abstract than I can. And of course, if you tell me to write it twice as long, twice as short, put an emphasis on this, on that, it changes in a second. And still I would write abstract, and I do write abstracts, and I do write text. So you have to find a way for you to write and guide yourself to situations where you actually write more yourself. And then speaking is very, very important. I think obviously if you are able to speak in front of an audience, that's great, because it works on everything, including your body language, including reacting to the audience. If you're able to speak in a dialogue with a friend or a colleague, try to do that as often as possible. If not, try to just do what I'm doing now. For example, speak to a camera and try to share your ideas this way, or even keep them to yourself, but just get the practice. So remember, just like we have the squat and the bench press and the deadlift, and I would also add the running, because this is something that I think is irreplaceable. You do the basics, long, natural movements that keep you in control. Try to do the same with the writing, the speaking, and the reading. And after you've done that, I have no problem with you doing more. Just like I don't have any problem with somebody that goes to a complicated machine at the gym and focuses only on the left ankle for 15 minutes. You want to do that? That's great, as long as you do the basics also. So if you find something that allows you to keep yourself in shape mentally, if it's any kind of word game or anything like this, you are most welcome to do it. But please don't neglect the basics, because this is what will keep you in shape and will keep your mind healthy for a long time. And then what comes in the future, we don't really know. We don't really know what skills will be useful and how long we will be able to hold on to many of the jobs that we have. But just like we keep our body healthy in a way as similar as possible to how it's designed. So if it's designed to hand mammoths, then you need to do a bench press to keep your shoulders and your chest and your hands strong. Then we do the same with these basics of communication that have been in use for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years, by people. We try to improve them and or at least keep them in a steady state so that we don't deteriorate and get ourselves mentally healthy towards the future. And that's all for today. And as always, I would really, really appreciate your comments and ideas. As you see, we're moving towards new topics. I am learning them as we speak. So any comment would be very, very useful. You can like the video. If you subscribe to my channel, I'll be very, very grateful. And until next time, keep learning.